Hey writer, I'm Karena Akhavein from Spalmorum. I am a PhD writing coach whose mission in life is to take you from aspiring writer to successful author. Today we're talking about something super important, and that is good storytelling. It's a foundation of writing, and it's good storytelling that makes the difference between a great book and a terrible book. I was inspired by the 22 rules of storytelling as devised by Pixar, the animation studio. Why are Pixar movies so popular and so successful? It's because they have understood the storytelling formula. They have understood that a good story is emotion-based. It is something that plays on the emotions of viewers because it's so intensely honest, true, and realistic in what it makes you feel. I'm gonna break down these 22 rules into 6 rules that you can use to take your book from just kind of flat and average to a masterpiece of storytelling. And it's gonna make all the difference in how your audience feels towards your writing. Let's get started. Rule number 1, great stories are universal. Great storytelling is about taking a piece of the human condition and conveying it in a unique situation. One of Pixar's directors put it perfectly. He said, what you're trying to do when you tell a story is to write about an event in your life that made you feel a certain way. And what you're trying to do when you tell the story is to get the audience to have the same feeling. That's a super powerful quote. How do you learn how to do this? I mean, I know it sounds very complicated, but how you learn how to do this is by reading and watching movies. And then when your book or your movie makes you feel a certain way, you pull apart that scene to figure out how the storyteller did it, how they made you feel that way. And then you can emulate that in your own work. Self-knowledge and awareness and a knowledge of psychology are key when it comes to good storytelling. Rule number 2, great stories have purpose and structure. When I'm talking about purpose, I mean that you have to have a really clear reason within yourself as to why you want and need to tell this story to your audience. And you need to know exactly how you want to make them feel when telling this story. And that's key because it's going to give you that motivation to write in a really powerful way. When I say a story needs to have a clear structure, I don't just mean it needs to have a beginning, middle, and end, which it really does need to have a beginning and middle and end. The playwright Ken Adams came up with something called the story spine. The story spine is a vastly simplified framework that helps you to build a story with all the right components in the right order. What is the story spine? Let me tell you. The story spine is this. You might want to take notes on this because it's super powerful. Once upon a time, there was a blank. Blank is your character, in case you didn't figure it out. Every day, blank. One day, blank. Because of that, blank. Until finally, blank. You're like, what the blankety blank are you talking about? Let me clarify. Okay, once upon a time there was a blank. This is setting up your situation. This is the background information. This is the historical stuff that you need to know for your story. Where does your story happen? What's the setting? What's the time period? And who is your main character? Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, or close by, I don't care, there was a blank. Who's your character, okay? Every day, blank. This is setting up what their normal baseline situation is. This is the situation that's going to be disrupted by the events that happen. They're going to precipitate the action of the story. So describe what they ideally like in their kind of stable existence, and then the next situation is one day, blank. That is your inciting incident. Something that happens to interrupt the normal pace of your character's life. We need this in every story. You cannot have a story where just the same thing happens all the time and it's just exactly the way your character wants it and it's exactly what they're used to and nothing happens and your audience is falling asleep. Because of that, blank. This is your character development. This is where they grow, they change, and they become a stronger, better, or more able person than they were before. Because of that, blank. This is where your character goes through the important changes, the important character growth that your reader wants to see. Your reader wants to see a transformation in your character. They can't just stay the way they are. That does not make for compelling storytelling. Until finally, blank. This is what happens after the climax of your story. This is the conclusion. This is the transformation that happened. This is the happy ending or the unhappy ending. That is the last part of your book. And you definitely need to know the ending before you start writing the beginning, I promise. Okay, ready for the 3rd rule of storytelling success? Good. Every story needs to have a main character to root for that is an underdog. So many new writers have a main character who's so perfect and so idealized and such a hero and so wonderful in every way that they end up being completely flat and boring. Your main character needs to have faults. They need to have emotions and opinions, some of them negative. They need to be a real person who's going to be reacting to situations in a very powerful way. That's so much more compelling than this flat, idealized character. The audience admires a character for trying more than they admire them for being just automatically successful. That's human nature. That's what we want to see. So if you put your character in a situation where their back's against a wall, they're really traumatized, they're having a really hard time of it, that's when things get interesting for the audience. What is your character good at? What are they comfortable with? Throw a ton of stuff at them that is going to keep them from that situation, and things are going to get good. Also, what are the stakes? Give us something to root for. Make it really important for the character to get exactly what they want so that you're rooting for them so hard when all the obstacles come their way. Pixar also makes great use of the antagonist. An antagonist is not necessarily the bad guy. The antagonist is a little bit of a mirror for your character who's going to be forcing your character out of their comfort zone. They might be creating conflict, they might be causing some kind of conclusion as to what their character wants or what they can't have. The antagonist doesn't need to be just the bad guy over here. Pixar has some movies such as Up where the antagonist is actually the sidekick. They're just a person who's kind of keeping your character from what they want, not from evil, but just from how they are. Like the little boy in Up who keeps the old dude from just being this curmudgeonly old dude by just his presence and by being the sidekick. It's kind of an interesting construct. And if you guys haven't watched Up in a while, I really recommend it. It's so powerful in the way the story is told. Rule number 4 for storytelling. Great stories appeal to our deepest emotions. I've mentioned emotions quite a few times in this talk, but emotions are key to good storytelling. What are the main emotions? Psychologists have narrowed down emotions into 6 key emotions: anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, surprise. So those are the 6, and you can choose any of those or a combination of those, but you really want to evoke those emotions in your readers. Continuously question yourself in order to understand your own emotional reaction to things so that you can work that into your book and into your story. This is where the authenticity comes into your storytelling. It's so key. If you were this character in this situation, how would you react and how would you feel? These are things that make your story feel true. This honesty will lend credibility to even the craziest situations and to even the craziest settings. That's what makes things believable, whether you set them next door or on Mars. And remember that the emotions don't always have to be positive. There can be some pretty messy emotions that are evoked by your writing, and it's those ups and downs that make things interesting. Rule number 5, great stories are surprising and unexpected. Yeah, we don't want to be bored. We don't want that story that, beautiful princess meets the awesome prince and he's so fabulous and they get married, they have a ton of children, nothing ever happens. That is so boring. Why don't we question that and surprise your reader? Find something unexpected in the way that you tell your story. Modern stories are so compelling because they question our perception of reality. They turn things on their head. All of these stereotypes and constructs that we've come to expect all of a sudden are taken down by modern storytellers, and that's what makes it really compelling as well. So if you have a story that's a little bit boring, use the story spine to try to brainstorm on things that might be a little bit more intriguing. Throw out that first draft, that second draft, that third draft, come up with the really crazy thing and make it believable through the authenticity of the emotions so that if there's an internal logic to what happens, your reader is never going to think that it's just too far-fetched. They're going to understand why these crazy things are happening, and that's what makes great storytelling. Challenge yourself and dig deep. Here is the last piece of storytelling advice, and it's very important. This is something I have to remind my writers about a lot. Stories need to be simple and focused. What does that mean to you? Oh, you're not going to like this. This means that all of those things that were so fun to write for you, all of those fun extra characters, all of those party scenes and eating scenes and, fun sidekick that actually doesn't need to be there except that they just make the main character look so darn good, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Get rid of anything extraneous, anything extra. You need to have the most economical way of telling your story. Pixar says to jump over obstacles and kill off characters because that is what is going to make your story so much stronger. You can combine multiple characters into one who has all of those traits that are crucial to play off of your main character, but you shouldn't be adding more just for the heck of it because you thought they were fun. As a creator, you feel like you're losing all this valuable, awesome stuff, but believe me, your story will be so much better for it in the end. Really think to yourself, is this valuable for me, the writer, because it's fun, or is it valuable for my reader? Always go for what's valuable for the reader. One way to know if you have extraneous parts on your story is to tell your story to somebody, a loved one, a family member, a friend. See in their face when they start to kind of drop off because your story lost its way. You really need your story to be direct. It can't get lost in a bunch of detours or else you're gonna lose your audience. You can find complexity somewhere else, but definitely not in the way you tell your plot. Simplify, simplify, simplify. That is key. If you're only gonna follow one rule, that would be it. Simplify. Make your story just completely bulletproof with the story spine. Once upon a time, there was blank. Every day they blank until one day blank. Therefore, they had to blank and finally blank. That's major. Try the story spine formula. Thank you, Pixar, for all of the great inspiration when it comes to storytelling. If you want the 22 pieces of advice, you can frame them above your desk, but these 6 are gonna get you started. I hope these really helped. If you have any questions, you can comment down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week with another video, and in the meantime, keep on writing. Thanks, guys.